Today I got new exciting endgame Necromancer build for you. I believe that my build is stronger than the current meta build, and I'm just really excited to share my version with you. I made this build so it would be easier to farm higher nightmare dungeons, and I'm pleased to see I can actually farm 70s with ease, maybe even more, but I feel like this is the sweet spot for me right now. I'm just much tankier overall, and I have this nice golem body blocking projectiles and reducing my damage taken. This makes it really easy to survive, and I can just focus on DPSing myself. It's just so much more pleasant to play than the other Bonespear builds I have been playing. And then let's go for actual test run. So this is 72 Cultist Refuge. This is actually one of my favorite dungeons. As I said, this build can do like 70, but it can do a bit more higher, like maybe 75 or something like that. Kinda easily. But like higher than that, everything just like one-shots you. It's not really nice to do those keys. Like you can do it like maybe once, try to push 100 once, but after that you're not really farming any higher keys. I don't think anyone in this game are farming higher keys than that. I think 70 is already really high key. You're totally fine if you can farm like 50s or 60s, but this build, it's actually the first build I can farm 70s without really like having any stress. Like it's just so smooth. I'm just tankier than usually I would be with the Bonespear spec. Plus, I'm not like setuping anything. I'm just running. Only thing I'm really doing is just spamming the corpse tendrils and just using my ball storm out of cooldown. But other than that, it's really like it's just you don't have to worry about anything. The golem, as you can see, it's not really like it's not really tanking for you that much. Sometimes it does it, but very often the enemies are just like ignoring him. But that's not really the point of the golem. The golem's point is that it's draining. Like every time I get hit, it's taking the damage for me. Like there, you could see the werewolf hit me, but I didn't really take that much damage from him. The golem is draining some amount of the damage I take, and on top of that I have the other defensive stuff, like I mentioned earlier. But it's just Necromancer usually doesn't have, like, we don't really have defensive tools, but like Fortify, we have High Fortify, kinda easily now after the patch, and when we have multiple sources of like reduced damage, it just adds up and suddenly we are tanky as basically, I will probably rate this spec like the best spec in the game. Like the Bonespear was already like it was the best spec. There is some other options as well, but I would still probably rather play this than the infamous builds that are showing up. But there's also some promise in the new like minion builds, so we shall see. Maybe I'm wrong, but right now it has been really enjoyable to farm with this build. And the whole run has been like what, less than 4 minutes. So sorry, the recording got off a bit here, but yeah, the whole run it took like 3 minutes 30 seconds. That was pretty good run, but usually like if everything goes right, you can expect like 5-minute runs with this spec, depending on the dungeon, of course. But this is a spec I like. I'm playing softcore right now, but I'm kind of running out of stuff to do. Like after I test these specs, I might be going hardcore if it takes too long for the season to come. So this is a spec I would be preferring when playing hardcore, just for the extra defensive, like the column absorbing damage I take. That is a really big deal in hardcore. In hardcore you would go a bit more defensive options, like in here, like the chest, you would just go full defensive. Even on the neck you would go a bit more defensive, and maybe rings you could still go like maximum health in here. But I believe with this spec you could play Bonespear in hardcore. Yeah, like I would be comfortable playing this spec in hardcore as well. Can start. So basically here at start, you don't have to worry about the bone splinters. I don't have them in my action bar. In here, unliving energy, 2 out of 3. Well, because here I need some extra points here, so I had to take it somewhere. Here, imperfectly balanced, 3 out of 3. Huge flesh, 3 out of 3. Bonespear, 5 out of 5. An enhanced and paranormal Bonespear. Okay, so then we have Blood Mist. We have Bone Prison, Enhanced Bone Prison, Dreadful Bone Prison, Grim Harvest, Fueled by Death, Death's Empress, and Corpse Tendrils, Enhanced, Blighted Corpse Tendrils, and then we have all these: Serration, Rapid Ossification, Compound Fracture, and Evolution. 3 extra comes from the neck. I would much rather have Evolution. It's actually much better, but we go with that. Golem Mastery, Standalone, Memento Mori, Bone Storm, Prime Bone Storm, Supreme Bone Storm, and Ossified Essence. That's all. So basically here at start, you don't have to worry about the bone splinters. I don't have them in my action bar. In here, unliving energy, 2 out of 3. Well, because here I need some extra points here, so I had to take it somewhere. Here, imperfectly balanced, 3 out of 3. Huge flesh, 3 out of 3. Bonespear, 5 out of 5. An enhanced and paranormal Bonespear. Okay, so then we have Blood Mist. We have Bone Prison, Enhanced Bone Prison, Dreadful Bone Prison, Grim Harvest, Fueled by Death, Death's Empress, and Corpse Tendrils, Enhanced, Blighted Corpse Tendrils, and then we have all these: Serration, Rapid Ossification, Compound Fracture, and Evolution. 3 extra comes from the neck. I would much rather have Evolution. It's actually much better, but we go with that. Golem Mastery, Standalone, Memento Mori, Bone Storm, Prime Bone Storm, Supreme Bone Storm, and Ossified Essence. Okay, so Book of the Dead, Skeletal Warriors, we sacrifice those for the crit. Then Skeletal Mages, we sacrifice for the Essence. And unlike normally, we actually have the Golem because of this. On higher keys, 15% damage taken on top of all the rest, like you have everything else, and then you have this. It's actually huge how much damage it's reducing. On lower keys you can play Bone and this one for the taunt, which is actually pretty nice if you do like, I don't know, 50s or 60s and just want to chill. The bone seemed it was a bit too weak for the 70s, but the blood was actually really good for the 70s. So next we have the gear. So I have pretty good helmet. This is unique, so all the stats are by default. In the chest I have armor, physical damage, bone skill damage, but I would actually probably recommend going with more like defensive stats, like damage reduction while fortified or stuff like that. But these are such nice rolls that I have had this for a while. And for the aspect, you should always go with the armor one. This is actually, I have the Bone Storm barrier on my legs, so the armor from the chest. Together those are really, really strong. And then my gloves, it's basically lucky hit, because I don't get any lucky hit from my rings. So you can also have like critical strike damage with bone skills instead of the lucky hit, if you have some lucky hit from the rings, for example. But for me, getting lucky hit from the gloves is probably the best. Yeah, and the imprinted aspect, Bone Storm consumes up to 8 corpses to increase its duration by 7.2 seconds. This is where it gets interesting, because we don't have corpse explosion, so we have to get essence some other way. One way is to get it from Bone Prison, but another really nice way, like when I'm dropping down, I have low energy. When I go to the next pack and I pop my Bone Storm, I will consume 8 corpses, and all of those corpses, they proc the Grim Harvest. So it gives me plenty of essence just from activating the Bone Storm. And this is, I really like this. This is, nobody's really playing this, but this is probably my favorite aspect, I have to say. I like the duration. 8 seconds more duration to the Bone Storm is also nice, because you get 15% crit, and you get also the damage reduction. And on top of that, since you have this, like this Bone Storm gives you barrier, the longer you have it up, the tankier you are. And also the Golem gets the Bone Storm, so he also gets the longer Bone Storm, not just you. And there is even another reason why this aspect is something I really enjoy having. It's because, like you know, I don't have the corpse explosion, but because of this aspect, I can still proc my Flesh Eater. So this one, I can proc it with my Bone Storm. So when the Bone Storm is consuming all the corpses, it will also proc the Flesh Eater for me. And then we have the legs. These you can go for defensive stats. I actually have really nice legs. Damage reduction, really high roll. Armor, really high roll. Maximum life, high roll, and max roll on the damage reduction from close enemies. And the aspect, as mentioned earlier, it is the Shielding Storm, so the Bone Storm gives barrier, and with the increased duration, it's actually really, really nice defensive. Together with this disobedience aspect from the chest, these together make you feel like you're just immortal. Together with the Golem giving you some extra reduced damage. And then boots, I think you should always go for Essence Cost Reduction. corpse tendrils, and then movement speed. I also got really nice roll of damage reduction while injured, but that's also something you can just choose by yourself. Maybe you prefer something like movement speed after you kill elite pack or something like that. The imprint itself, you basically have two options for this. I have this while unstoppable. So basically what this means, whenever I use my blood mist, that actually means I'm also unstoppable. So I get 25% move speed, and then right after I come out, I also get the move speed. So it's like a double dip for this. And the other option would be the one where you get move speed every time you crit, because you crit all the time, then you would get move speed all the time, and that is also a really good option. I just didn't have the high roll one, so I just went with this instead. For neck, you want to have the corpse tendrils glyph in here, so it's the grasping veins aspect. And for the stats itself, like I think the most important stat is the essence cost reduction, and after that I would probably get the evolution passive, and after that some defensive stats. And move speed is actually something I would value really highly. Right now I only have the cooldown reduction, but I have been rolling and rolling, trying to get the better neck. But basically the corpse tendrils, you get such a high value if you have it on your neck. You get 90%, like if you have the max roll, you have the 90% damage increase after you cast corpse tendrils. But you also get the 30% crit chance, which might be like, I have actually 50% crit chance already, so when I get 30% from here, I'm like, what, 100 no matter what. And for the rings, I like to have my ossified essence, so the serration, on my ring instead of the neck, because I think there's higher value if you have this grasping veins in your neck. But you can maybe rotate these a bit. You can also have like, I think you can have the ossified essence on your gloves, and then you just have the bone storm one on your one of your rings. And then on my other ring you have this is, I would say this is the best aspect you can have for your Bonespear Necromancer. Like after you get this, if it has any decent roll, after that it's just so much more pleasant to play, because your essence just keeps going up and it basically never drops. But for the stats, ring vulnerable damage is your best stat. After that, crit chance, and after that, basically lucky hit is fine. Critical strike damage with bone skills, or critical strike damage. But vulnerable damage, critical strike damage, I wouldn't choose anything else over these. And I have pretty similar ring here, because I have the lucky hit from my gloves. I can go with really offensive rings. And the next and the last, the weapon, I actually have pretty nice sight, and I actually prefer this over the sword because of the life on kill. It's also a bit slower weapon, so the damage is a bit higher. The sword has 1 attacks per second, this has 0.9, so it's kind of like every Bonespear still does a bit more damage compared to the sword, only that it has a bit higher crit damage. So it's maybe a bit more damage, but on top of that, I have live on kill on this one. So I would probably always go for Scythe if the sword had the similar stats. But anyway, about the aspect, it's the splintering aspect. This you should always have on your weapon, because for some reason you actually get more value. Usually when you have some aspect on your weapon, you get 2 times the effectiveness. But on this one, it's actually like 225. Like it's a bit more for some reason. So I would always go splintering aspect on the weapon. And I think the most important part here when you choose your weapon and when you try to roll stats on your weapon, this is always like, this is really confusing for a lot of people, and it was super confusing for me as well. Like, what stats should I roll? It always sucks when you roll some wrong stat and you're basically like lowering your damage only because like you think higher percentage is like a higher damage, but it's not like that. So vulnerable damage, that is the highest multiplier you can have from a weapon. Like, that is always the best. You always want to have vulnerable damage, and there is no exceptions. And after that, it's actually your primary stat you want. So in here, intelligence, that is the second stat I want to have. And after that, there's like 3 options for the 2 remaining spots. That would be the core skill damage, which I have, but also like critical strike damage, that would be acceptable, or critical strike damage with bone skills, which I have as well. So basically vulnerable damage, intelligence, and after that any of those other stats. And the sockets, of course, weapon, you have the vulnerable enemies damage, and here you can choose basically maximum life, or you can choose the one that reduces the damage when you're crowd controlled. That is also a really good option. My maximum health is kinda low, so I would rather have the maximum life from all of these. But you could go like maybe mix, maybe have 3 of these and then like 2 of those other ones, just for some extra defense when you're stunned, for example. And for these sockets, you always want to have the armor. There is no like other option. Then consumables. These would be the best choice, like the maximum resource by 50, but also something like precision elixir. Those are also good. Or, for example, if you lack the essence cost reduction from here or from the boots, you can also use the one that reduces the essence cost by 20. But it has like a diminishing return, so the more you have of it, less effective it is. So it's not really that helpful if you have this. But if you don't have any, then it's actually really nice one to have. Then we have the Paragon board, and you can see it's kind of interesting board I have here. I have 6 of them. Usually you only have like 4 or maybe 5 as a Necromancer, but I found out this is actually working really well for me, so I can get some extra stuff like this. But let's go through that. So basically, let's start from here. We have a Blood Tinker here, and this is kind of basic. This is your like defensive, the most defensive glyph you can have. Every time you use this corpse tendrils, it will spawn blood orbs, and with this you will use those blood orbs to get some fortification. I will not go through this so like specifically, but I will have to highlight something here. You have the essence of kill. This node is super important, and here you also have one, and you have one here. This is the only place where you can get like essence from your Paragon board at all. So it is just insanely important to get this. Like this is also like maximum essence. This is actually a lot of damage for you. Then we have the bone craft here, and we have vulnerable damage. So we have the exploit. It also gives you damage when you deal damage to vulnerable enemies. Then the next board, it would be the Scent of Death. And basically you get 15% damage reduction when you have corpses near you, and you get more damage when there's no corpses near you. I feel like this should be the other way around, because like that's kind of logical. Like you start the fight, you have no corpses, you have some damage reduction, and then you start DPSing, and then suddenly it swaps around. But yeah, it is what it is. It's like that. It's still super good. And then you have the Imbiber, so you get damage for healthy, and you also get the potion healing. This is like pretty decent amount of damage. And then we have the gate here. Continue. We get the damage. This is actually something I really like to point out, is the damage reduction. It's not only the damage to close enemies, but it's the damage reduction. This is again another really nice multiplier, and it fits in here perfectly. This is the Hulkin monstrosity board. We are not picking this because Golem is not really doing any damage. We only have this because of the dexterity, like the glyph spot. This is nothing important either. Like the Golem is not really doing damage, so we just want to get past here. These are quite good. You get damage while Golem is active, and these are also damage while Golem is active. And then we go next board, and we get the critical strike damage with core skills, so essence. And we also get the critical strikes deal 20% more damage to enemies that are not healthy. And we get some like fortified damage here. This is not active, so it's not a big deal. But we just continue to the next board. We ignore this bloodbath because it's not really giving us anything. But we want to, because it's so close to this corner here, we can go for Flesh Eater here. And that's the end of the board. And this is kind of huge, but we get a lot of nice stuff like this, and that way we can maximize our damage. But yeah, overall the build feels really smooth. It's like it's basically next level from the Bonespear build. I have always wanted to drop the corpse explosions from this build, because it feels like you're never really using it, and whenever you're using it, it feels bad. Like you could do something else, like throw those Bonespears. But with this build, at this point, I don't really need the corpse explosion, so it was pretty easy to drop it. I don't even have the aspect that gives you essence whenever you crowd control enemies. I have that aspect, of course, like I've found a lot of that, I have multiple of those, but that's another, like I could just drop it because I'm pretty much full essence all the time. And whenever I drop, I just pop my Bone Storm and I'm full energy again. And yeah, that just feels like as a farm build, this feels so much better than spamming corpse explosions all the time. Like, it's just so straightforward. Like, you just run and gun. Like, you don't worry about anything. And this is, again, this is like 70 run. It doesn't look hard at all, as you can see. And you still have enough damage for everything. Well, anyway, that was a long video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.